The anti-capitalism movement has existed for almost as long as capitalism itself has at this point. In times of financial strife, the indignation and the frustration of the masses struggling to get by brings a rise in anti-capitalist rhetoric, and there's not a more prevalent time to see this than right now. Tax the rich, eat the rich, bring out your guillotines because the world is going to shit, and the rich are to blame for it. Look, I'll be honest, I don't like capitalism. If I were suddenly endowed with an infinity gauntlet, I would happily click capitalism out of existence and replace it with a much fairer system that was aimed more towards human happiness. However, I realize I don't have such power. I don't live in a fantasy land, and whether I like it or not, capitalism is most certainly here to stay, and whilst for some of you that might be something to rejoice, I imagine for many others that sounds like a living nightmare. Yes, dear listener, do not fret. I am here to crush all of your hopes and dreams that anti-capitalism will ever do anything useful anytime soon. I'm here to let you know that anti-capitalism is just another grift.
The people of Moscow are hungry, but think what a feast there could be if we could create a socialist state that cared for the people like me.
When I look at all the recent goings-on of the anti-capitalist movement, I can't help but be reminded of an old Bill Hicks routine he does on advertising or marketing. It's less of a routine, really, and more of an honest rant in which he tells advertisers and marketers, and really capitalism in general, what he thinks of it.
By the way, if anyone here is in advertising or marketing, kill yourself. Thank you. Thanks. Just a little thought. I'm just trying to plant seeds. Maybe one day they'll take root. I don't know. You try. You do what you can. Kill yourselves. Seriously, though, if you are, do. I know what all the marketing people are thinking right now, too. Oh, you know what Bill's doing? He's going for that anti-marketing dollar. That's a good market. He's very smart. Oh, man, I am not doing that. You fucking evil scumbags. Oh, you know what Bill's doing now? He's going for the righteous indignation dollar. That's a big dollar. A lot of people are feeling that indignation. We've done research. Huge market. He's doing a good thing. God damn it, I'm not doing that, you scumbags. Quit putting a goddamn dollar sign on every fucking thing on this planet. Ooh, the anger dollar. Huge. Huge in times of recession. Giant market. Bill's very bright to do that. God, I'm just caught in a fucking web. Ooh, the trapped dollar. Big dollar. Huge dollar. Good market. Look at our research. We see that many people feel trapped. If we play to them and separate them into the trapped dollar, how do you live like that? I bet you sleep like fucking babies at night, don't you? What'd you do tonight, honey? Oh, we made arsenic childhood food now.
The routine is incredible, not just because Bill Hicks is showcasing his very clear anger and frustration at the marketing industry, but what I failed to notice, and I don't know if Bill intended it or not, but the routine shows just how futile having that anger and rage has now become. Once upon a time, the anti-capitalist movement may have been a genuine one, full to the brim of good-intentioned people wanting to make a change, to rid the world of harm that capitalism brings, and to try and to introduce a new system, one that might see more fairness and equality not just in the policies we make, but the wealth we share among one another. It is through anti-capitalism, after all, that most socialist ideas are offered as alternatives, and you can thank Karl Marx for that battle that still rages on today. However, the road to hell is often paved with good intentions, and at some point along that road, somebody somewhere noticed something. There's money to be made here.
We've got to have money.
Allow me to refer to this shoddily drawn graph that I made on Paint to help illustrate things as we move on. I have divided what I believe the main players in the anti-capitalist movement to be into 4 sections of what I call the anti-capitalism totem pole, starting from the bottom being the least important players to the top, the most important. We begin our analysis of what I'm going to refer to from this point on as anti-caps for the sake of brevity at the bottom of this totem pole. Here we find the least important players in the movement, you and me, the average Joe, the general public, the unwashed masses, or what anti-caps may refer to as the proletariat.
I am the man who arranges the blocks that descend upon me from up above. They come down and I spin them around till they fit in the ground like hand in glove.
The people who those on the higher rings of the totem pole need to persuade. Whilst this aspect of the totem pole may not hold the most power in comparison to the higher levels, and while it is the least important in terms of status, it is still a very important piece of the puzzle. It is from this base of people that anti-capitalism can take root. It is from this base of people that a foundation can be built, a message can be shared, and your market can be formed. Now, the anti-caps have been given a huge treasure trove of events that would influence this group of people to listen to the anti-cap rhetoric. Now, whilst they certainly have gotten louder in most recent years, really, the past few decades have been a slow and steady build to this fire that's currently raging. I'm currently 27 years old, so let's take my age, and I'll list as many things that I can remember I've lived through up until this point that can lead to someone questioning their faith in this system. The Y2K scare, 9/11, the 7/7 bombings, the Patriot Act, the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, the 2008 recession, the banks that caused said recession being bailed out, Operation Inherent Resolve, Brexit, the 2016 presidential election, COVID, another financial crisis, the 2020 presidential election, the January 6th insurrection. That's only listing the shit I can remember from the past 20 years. There's probably more there, but I'd be here all day. The important thing is in here, we have untold amounts of chaos. Wars that are fucking questionable at best if you want to be a bit willfully ignorant, and downright unlawful if you want to be honest with yourself. Getting massive amounts of funding whilst the public sector receives a pittance if they are lucky. 2 financial crises in our lifetime, both unlike any other we had seen since the Depression. Seeing politician after politician after politician kowtow to corporate entities while stiffing the hard-working public along the way. Anti-capitalism's breeding ground is when chaos reigns in a capitalist system. And chaos has reigned for the past 20 years. When people are angry, frustrated, indignant, fed up in general with the deck of cards that they've been dealt, anti-caps really begin to flourish, and we are certainly seeing that now. The pandemic is only the most recent in a string of fast-happening events that anti-caps can cling to use as a foundation to spread their message to a wider range of people. Anti-cap succeeds when capitalism looks like it's failing. I'll get into that later, but people think that this just sparked within the last 4 years, or 5 or so, and you can easily be forgiven for thinking that. The human brain isn't the best at remembering past a certain point when it tries to analyze what leads to events happening. Most things just feel like they've cropped up out of nowhere, when that isn't usually the case. We're a very reactionary species, in my opinion, so we only notice things with immense amounts of hindsight. What I'm trying to say is, the massive division that we're seeing now across the world amongst right and left, the capitalist and the anti-cap, it didn't just happen. It's been building for a long time. Whether it's been built intentionally or not is not a topic I want to discuss because I don't want to delve into conspiracy. But it certainly has been building for at least the past 2 decades. One chaotic event after another, seemingly slow at first, spread out. Imagine these events like a long line of gunpowder, which eventually hits a large stack of TNT. you might not notice if the gunpowder gets lit. Disasters, wars, chaos in general are all unfortunately a part of the human experience, but the gunpowder's been lit all the same. It's only a small spark, and other things have your attention, your friends, your family, your day-to-day job, your relationships. You might notice a chaotic event here and there, but you don't really notice what it's all culminating to or creating along the way. And eventually, that fire is going to hit a point where an explosion has to happen. And in my eyes, that point came in 2016. Ah, yes, 2016. A year I'm sure many would like to forget, and others, after looking how the last 2 years have gone, might want to return to. Regardless what they thought of it then, I'm not here to revisit the wondrous year of our Lord 2016 to explain why things happened the way they did. I'm here to explain why I think the things that happened are the ignition point of the explosion that I'm talking about. The point where we're no longer dealing with just a line of gunpowder, but the explosion has happened, and capitalism, being so bloated, finds itself under threat. And anti-capitalism is standing there ready as its opposition, hoping to finally do what it has been unable to do for so long, and came close a couple times too. Slay this fucking beast once and for all. Now, these events certainly play a part in it all. Brexit in the UK, while on the surface is an argument about immigration, sovereignty, and a whole bunch of shit not worth discussing in this video, it is in essence an argument taking place that is funded by two factions, both looking to get monetary benefit from their little game. Whether Brexiters actually thought they'd win is still up for debate, but there certainly were people willing to put their money on it, because getting out of EU law meant that Britain could escape from regulations that stopped them from really raking in some serious cash. And for the people funding the Remain argument, they see stability, economic security. Sure, maybe they're not making the most profit possible because of these EU restrictions, but it's a reliable gravy train. Why derail it? Of course, Brexit happens the way it does, and in the absolute circus that followed for the next 2 fucking years, one politician gains notoriety and popularity along the way. Jeremy Corbyn. That is until Boris Johnson became the Conservative leader, beat him in an election and sent him home packing, but back then, when Theresa May was in charge, Corbyn had a chance. And that's all anti-capitalism needs in order to gain prominence. A chance. Now, it could be because Theresa May wasn't as hard of a Brexiter as Conservative Britain wanted, and Boris was. So when he came along, the choice wasn't as hard for Britain who to vote for. However, there was a clear rise and following of socialist idea after the Brexit result. Corbyn certainly saw a rise in popularity, and the reasoning was simple. There was a large enough crowd of people that saw cause for concern with a Brexit Britain ran by these corporate-bought, self-serving Tories. Regulations will be torn up. Britain could become a tax haven for the super-rich. The Panama Papers scandal happened during this period of time. Grenfell Tower burned like a matchstick because of shoddy cladding, cut corners, and lax legislation that basically let landlords not give a fuck about the state of the housing that they provided. The anti-cap rhetoric was clear. The Tories do not care about you, they care about money, and they're going to use Brexit as a way to make lots of it while we suffer. At the same time in America, we have this going on. Probably nothing to worry about. Nothing to see here, folks. You know, the more I think about it, the more I think that Trump is just the perfect representation of capitalism. Like, if capitalism was a person, it would be Donald Trump. Loud, abrasive, totally full of itself, hateful as fuck, just a general piece of shit. The reaction to his win was not well received by some, and especially seeing as, at the same time, this guy was an option for president. Remember what they took from you, America? Twice. Bernie Sanders ignites a real conversation about ideas that have never gotten anywhere above being a wedge issue for literal decades, and puts them straight on the presidential debate stage for millions to hear. And despite the failure of his campaign, he maintains a fiery, passionate base of leftists, all looking to direct their anger and frustration somewhere, all wanting to continue spreading his message. Now, I do find it strange that during the same year, in two of the biggest economies in the world, in two of the most recognized capitalist countries in the world, an election happens, which divides the nation, sees the rise of leftist populative alternative, which ignites a cult following, brings anti-cap rhetoric to the mainstream, and essentially begins the modern anti-cap movement we have today in both countries. But it is these two countries, and specifically these two individuals, that I believe you can truly thank for starting the anti-cap movement and building that foundation of the totem pole. It is from this galvanized, frustrated, angry base of people that individuals begin to rise, looking to spread their message, garner a community, change minds, pull people over to their side, continue the good work of these men, and challenge the current system in play. Some of these people fall by the wayside. Some of them become local heroes, start support groups, charities. Some of them do the hard work and try to get into politics. And some people go to YouTube and Twitch.
I am the man who arranges the blocks that continue to fall from up above. Come Moscow white, let the workers unite, a collective regime of peace and love.
I was going to label this section snake oil sellers, because that's what I think most of these people amount to. But I'm at least trying to pretend I'm being legitimate in this presentation. So this next section of the totem pole is called independent media. Not quite important enough to be considered a big fish, but too important for you to completely ignore them, which is a fucking shame. Because when it comes to anything political from these people, I wish we could ignore them. Dear God, I wish we could. So remember the goal of these higher tiers of the totem pole. Persuade the proletariat. Make them believe in anti-cap rhetoric. Easiest way to do that is through our independent media, your YouTube creator, your Twitch streamer, TikToker, podcaster, whatever the fuck you engage in online. Somebody somewhere is trying to take down capitalism. Why is this tier easier to persuade the bottom tier than the higher ones? Well, your content creator, for the most part, seems like an everyday person. Whether or not they are isn't really the point. You see someone chilling in a room with headphones on, looking at their screen. You're kind of looking at a mirror here. These people seem like you and me. It's the I'd have a beer with them principle. You can see yourself sitting down with these people, chatting with them, perhaps being friends with them, which is how parasocial relationships are formed, by the way. Don't think these people are your friends. Really, they're not. Especially the anti-cap variety. I'll admit, I watched some anti-cap content creators, and I admit I bought the snake oil for a bit. I'm a disenfranchised member of the LGBT community who feels politically lost and would like this dogshit system to change. Of course, anti-cap ideology sounded like sweet, sweet music to my ears, but it's only recently I found myself asking, in the years I've been following these people, what in the fuck have they actually done? I realize their job as content creators is to create content. So more often than not, I'm not going to see them do anything. I'm going to see them sat on their ass. But, you know, take a day off and go to a rally. Help organizers. I don't know. Maybe, just maybe, fund some shit that would align with your supposed goals with all that sub-bit and Patreon money that you make. I don't know. Just planting seeds, seeing if they'll grow. Maybe put your money where your mouth is. Just an idea. I don't know how many of these creators started off as genuine believers and then once the money started rolling in realized that if an anti-cap world did happen, their little nest egg wouldn't have the funds that it now has. Or if they were all grifting from the start. But all of them, every single one of them, have realized they are much better off giving you something to believe in rather than helping to deliver it to you, and either hope someone else does the work for them, or just hope that the grift never ends because, have you seen the state of the world lately? We're pretty fucked. The anti-cap movement ain't ending anytime soon, and these content creators know it. So either someone else will do the work, or they just keep selling the pipe dream. Now, I'll be fair, some of them have done good work with the money they made, but nothing to be ringing the bells of victory for. Not even for a single battle, let alone the war. Like, can anyone actually name a rally, a fundraiser for a union or political group, a door-knocking campaign, a pamphlet campaign, literally one anti-cap figure in the independent media who has done anything even remotely close to this? I've seen a hell of a lot of merch out there. Tax the rich, eat the rich, maybe a Che Guevara shirt if they want to be real fucking edgy. Oh yeah, that anti-cap merch sure brings in a few dollars, but it's those anti-cap subs and biddies. Whoo boy! That's where it's at, my friend. You can earn so much of those. You can buy yourself a house with those. Not that I have anything against someone buying themselves a house, by the way. I just, again, ask, was there nothing you could maybe fund that helped spread your message even further? To a more mainstream level, maybe. Again, just planting seeds, hoping they'll grow. Probably won't. Now I know what some of you anti-cap people out there are thinking. Here we go again. The hypocrisy argument. You argue against capitalism, but engage in it. You're a hypocrite. That's not the argument I'm making. It's a dumb fucking argument. Seriously. People who criticize anti-cap figures, stop using this fucking argument. It's basic bitch shit. Do I think that the money these people make could be better spent on funding shit that actually increases the power of the movement itself? Absolutely, but at the end of the day, I'm also a libertarian. If a motherfucker wants to spend his anti-cap money on hookers and blow, I'm for it. I'll question it, but I ain't gonna stop him. My point, however, relies on the response to that dumb argument of hypocrisy in the first place. See, when someone says, you argument against capitalism but participated, you're a hypocrite, you'll hear your favorite content creator respond with, but we have to engage in it. We have no other choice. And right there, my friends, is the rub. They have to engage in it. They have to engage in it. They are serving to you the very reason why their movement is nothing more than a giant grift on a silver platter, and we all just let it whiz over our heads. They have to engage in it. Capitalism is such an involved system of commerce, with its roots so deep, so entrenched, that those who oppose it have no choice but to take part in it if they want to be a part of society, and if they want their message to be heard, if they want their anti-cap ideology to take hold, they have to rely on capitalism to spread it. These independent content creators could very quickly find themselves back on the bottom section of the totem pole if everyone supporting them stopped giving them their dollar. And whether they like it or not, capitalism certainly helped give them a better standard of living. The money they get from their supporters helps pay for a more comfortable life, and they certainly don't want to lose that. Now, whether they intentionally sell every principle they ever had down the river to do it, or unintentionally or unknowingly, is up to you. But the math here is very simple. Being very anti-cap initially garners the initial follower base, the true believers, from the lower section of the totem pole, the people so fed up they would take a revolution like it was hotcakes. These followers give you money, share your content with others, they follow you, your support grows, and these followers give money financially if they can, the sharing continues, as does the support. Eventually you find yourself hitting a wall. Your rhetoric might be a bit too extreme to go past a certain threshold. Your rhetoric becomes more moderate over time to reel in those who may have found you too extreme before. You convince your followers, and maybe even yourself, that you're trying to just convince people, change their minds, while making sure to spout your anti-cap ideas of the past just enough so those who are from the beginning know you're still fighting the good fight. A balancing act begins, making sure you're garnering more followers, more support, and in the end, more finance, while at the same time, keeping the dream alive. Anti-cap is here, and it's coming for you, Uncle Sam. Make people believe in something, that they are a part of something, and they'll fork their money over to you so easily, they won't even notice when your ideas start watering down. Because once somebody puts faith in something, and their money in something, it's hard to get them to go back. Maybe you don't even notice you sold out, because after all, you have to engage in capitalism in order to criticize it. You need the support in order to do what you do, say what you say, fight for what you fight for, and yet it never really goes anywhere beyond that, does it? No, I certainly don't expect one person to take down capitalism, but I certainly expect them to contribute something to the movement they claim to be a part of, outside of memeing and creaming. But all this tier of the totem pole is meant to do is persuade, not act. Make people feel like they're doing something, without them actually doing a goddamn thing.
I am the man who arranges the blocks that are made by the men in Kazakhstan. They come 2 weeks late and they don't tessellate, but we're working to Stalin's 5-year plan.
Our next tier encompasses celebrities, mainstream media, and politicians. Now, they certainly aren't as loud as our previous tier because the vast majority of mainstream media, celebrities, and politicians are products of capitalism. They are the beneficiaries of it, and they want to keep that gravy train on the tracks. And for many of them, it's rhetoric that would lead to them losing their support. And what person or corporate entity in their position wants that? There are a few out there, though, certainly that do the job, because at the end of the day, if the most influential figures that we have in this movement are contained to social media, then the movement doesn't really have much steam outside of the online sphere, does it? We need to at least select a few to help propel the hope for the movement that maybe, just maybe, they'll get to make some change. And very much like our previous tier, these people, the politicians especially, benefit from spreading this rhetoric, because they are able to reach an even larger base of people than the independent creator are. Looking at Jeremy Corbyn and Bernie Sanders' passionate bases would tell them that there's enough there to get them votes and financial support if they happen to be based in the right state and city. The problem here is that these people are in actual positions of power. They can lobby for shit, try to get their names on legislation, try to get debates tabled, create policy, make votes matter, and they haven't really done that. The most notable thing that a political figure has done to garner support from the anti-cap movement was wear a fucking dress. And hey, if wearing a dress that says "Tag the Rich" is enough to get these people blowing their loads for the revolution, more power to you. If small, meaningless posturing like that is enough to keep them by your side, then real, substantive action, you can throw that shit out the window and reel in the support you want. Nothing really showed me how ineffectual this movement really is, more than that whole fucking debate, by the way. While everybody was arguing about whether or not AOC wearing that dress was hypocritical, I was just asking, what did it achieve? And the answer really is nothing. It caused a debate, it got some attention, which is good for AOC, of course, but I mean, we've all moved on from it now. The conversation lasted, what, maybe 2 weeks? 3? Way to go, I guess. You really started the engagement of anti-cap ideology there, folks. Maybe I'm wrong for expecting more out of politicians to actually deliver something other than rhetoric. The media, the celebrities, of course they're going to say whatever they need to in order to make themselves look good. Celebrities are all about PR. They live in gated communities. They haven't engaged with a real person in decades. Media outlets, whatever gets them the most readers, equals the most money for them. But a politician has a chance to do something meaningful, and instead blows it on a stunt like this? Consider me unimpressed. And the sad thing is, their base is so passionate and so full of fire that they're willing to jump to defend their favorite politicians like their favorite sports team. This section is notably shorter, but it's still relevant, because without this section of people, the movement would eventually fall apart. Without the squad, the anti-caps would have gone nowhere. Ironically enough, with the squad, they've gotten nowhere too. So I guess that's very telling of how this whole movement is going to end up, isn't it?
I am the man who arranges the blocks that continue to fall from up above. The buckets are free, so much money for me. Tell me, why should I care for peace and love? The buckets are free, so much money for me. Tell me, why should I care for peace and love? Peace and love. Peace and love.
You may find it strange that at the top of the totem pole, I have placed the opposition. How on earth do corporations, billionaires, corrupt politicians, right-wing media pundits, and pro-capitalist people in general play a part in anti-cap movement? Well, dear listeners, it's very simple. What good would this movement be without its enemy? See, we've saved the best for last here, folks, because what I'm about to propose to you summarizes exactly why I think the entirety of the anti-cap movement is just a grift, a pipe dream, a fantasy that will never be fulfilled because ultimately it reinforces the very system it claims to stand against. Remember what I said earlier. Capitalism is a deeply entrenched system now. It is, by design, a system that in times of peril can reach down its roots into the deepest depths and latch on to a market to reinforce the system during times of uncertainty, weakness, and chaos. Allow me to ask a very simple question. What does capitalism need to survive? The answer is consumption. The system doesn't care what you consume, how you consume it, where or when you consume it, or why. It just needs you to consume it. Therefore, as Bill Hicks rightfully points out in his routine we saw earlier, anybody within marketing is able to put a dollar amount on literally anything and everything they need to in order to make a profit. That includes creating markets out of movements that on paper go against the very existence of capitalism itself. I mean, think about it. In times of stability and economic prosperity, sure, anti-caps are a nuisance to the system at best, but not really anything close to being considered a threat. In times of peril, however, is when the movement has its true potential, and the system needs to keep a close eye on things to make sure that the established order of things doesn't come to ruin. What better way of reinforcing your system when it is struggling by utilizing the very movement that has formed against it and turning it into another money-making scheme, and in essence, both sides are kept happy in the process. The anti-caps are led into believing their movement is gaining ground and influence, that they are finally making their presence on the grand stage of politics once again, and this time it's gonna be different. Smaller independent influencers get to feel like they're taking part in their own little slice of revolution whilst getting some change from their new little hustle. Celebrities and politicians get to garner support from their audiences, and the corruptions, the corporatists, the billionaires, they don't feel the slightest bit threatened. They really don't. You want to know how I'm confident in telling you that the people benefiting the most from this system, the people essentially running this system, aren't even paying attention to the anti-cap movement? We're still going through a pandemic right now. Wealth inequality is continuing to rise. There are staff shortages we haven't seen since some time. Every single industry has taken a hit. And what are the billionaires doing? They're going to space. Yes, that's right, anti-caps, your movement is going so strong that the wealthy elites are racing off to space against one another. You've really got them on the ropes now. I'm sure we'll be taxing them, eating them, and guillotining them in no time. Keep fighting the good fight. But really, why should they worry about you? I mean, what have you done? what policies are your politicians trying to put forward, what debate is being tabled in your houses of parliament or your senate, what legislation is your squad trying to put their names to, what rallies are being funded, what unions, what collective bargaining. I've got to say, if this is the best this movement has to offer, is a dress at the Met Gala that says tax the rich, color me fucking unimpressed. These rich elites have no reason to fear you. In fact, you're the very definition of useful idiot to them, because they've got enough politicians in their pockets, enough media organizations on their side, and enough of the general public that will rush to their defense anytime you attack them, that they don't even need to be aware of your existence. So come on, comrade, keep pumping out that hopium. Maybe by the time you actually do anything effective, Elon might have gotten closer to getting to Mars. Your movement is pathetically ineffective, and frankly, I wish I'd seen it for what it was much sooner. Another grift. Another teat for capitalism to feed off when it needs its sustenance. Another dream that will only fade away when capitalism is back on track, and like a dirty little rag in a teenager's bedroom, eventually it'll get thrown away once more.
So we reject free enterprise, and once again the left will rise. Prepare the flags to be unfurled, 'cause we're seceding from the world. We shall regain the Georgian soil, we shall obtain the Arctic oil, we shall